want us to begin? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Standing Committee on Strategies and Public Policies for March 17, 2025. Time is flying. Good evening and welcome, everyone. Let's begin with the first presentation, which comes from our friends at PRO Kids. And I'm going to ask for you to present. Good evening, welcome, thank you. We are Pro Jeunesse, Dieppe Memramcook. My name is Samuel Nadeau. I'm the Executive Director. Pascal ici. I'm on the Board of Directors as Vice President. So, to Pro Kids is a community program which helps young people age 2 to 18 who live in difficult financial circumstances and helps them attend activities of a community, cultural, or sport nature. In Dieppe Memramcook, our vision is that all children in Dieppe Memramcook can participate in sport, recreational, cultural, and community activities to increase their self-esteem, their knowledge, and personal development while promoting well-being and learning new activities. In 2024, we had three main goals that we concentrate on. The first one was to hire a new executive director. This project began in April and concluded in May. This employee has been there full-time since September 2024. This hiring also allowed us during a transition time, ensuring the independence of the organization according to our agreement with the City of Dieppe. Previously, we worked with an office in Dieppe, and so the transition with this new employee
pour retourner un petit peu à l'arrière, pendant sa retraite, le département de loisirs a pris beaucoup de responsabilités.
So the person took on a lot of responsibilities to help Pro Kids, and this team had different roles looking at the requests by children, and they came up with the financial program. So with the hiring of our executive director, this allowed us to move on to the next steps, more specifically to deal with the demand coming from young people. We have a website which is going to be opened in 2025, in addition to the one for the City of Dieppe, and headed by our executive director. Our second objective was to continue to organize major events at Ville, which allowed us to collect $22,000 in 2024. The Wildcats golf tournament, and it was divided between three committees, Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe. And so we raised $30,000 through that. And the walk in wool socks, which we did along with Co-op IGA, and which helped us raise finances for activities of a cultural and community type. And last year, we had a high participation, and this provided us an opportunity to establish a partnership with community groups, which was a big success for us. And our third objective in 2020 was to provide more funding for families in need, and clearly this was help. We are there to help them. I'll tell you why we're here to do the presentation. I forgot to say at the outset, the agreement that we had signed with the city in 2023, every year we are doing a presentation like this and the future plans of the organization, and to tell you what we've done over the course of the past year. So that's the reason we're here today. As Pascal has just mentioned, the third objective was really to bring more young people and families in financial difficulty. According to this table, you can see we had a major increase. We went from $20,000 to $155,000, and the total amount is we have $155,000 compared to 2023. I don't know if it was because of COVID, but it's really because of the newcomers who are coming to our city. Lots of people, have to deal with inflation. And so these situations are much more difficult on a financial basis. And I would also say that with regard to new arrivals, the big contribution is they love to play soccer. Soccer is played during the summertime, so this is why you have seen this increase during the summer period. So 150 more children, and you can see that $61,000 uh, increased our funding compared to last year. Also, 179 families that we were able to help this year. So 117 new families. You can see that, for example, if someone has lost a job, then that doesn't put them within our criteria with regard to our financial template. But 179 families joined, and so they were helped and they found themselves in these difficulties. So 49 families from new arrivals, 7 single parent families. You can go down the list. We want to do more work in finding families who are low income. This is our future plan for this year, to work with social workers and to perhaps go through the schools and to find these families, because there are only 14 of these families that we are dealing with right now. They can also fill the form in, and you know a lot of them say why they need social assistance or this kind of assistance, but they don't tell us that they're low income. So normally, the amount is 400 and some dollars, but this is why the average cost we give them now is $473. And so the average family does 2.6 requests, and what per young person, 1.5. When you divide it over 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter. The activities that are chosen by young people, as I mentioned earlier, new arrivals show that soccer is of huge interest. And I would like to thank Yannick, who is the executive director of the Soccer Association. He's done incredible work in helping these families and helping us, finding us the financial templates and all the documents we needed, and to make our process easier. I want to thank him. And we have a lot of applications from Soccer Dieppe, and just generally speaking, soccer, skating, swimming, music, dance, judo, and hockey. So we're a little different from other provincial or national association because of music and dance activities. Normally, cultural activities are not covered with kids sport or jump sport. That's how we are different. And you can see that about 12% of our placements occur in these two activities, music and dance. Our successes, as Pascal said, the Woolsock Walk, we had a lot of participation over the last few years. We raised $20,000. It was a great event, in fact, especially with the partnerships that we were able to establish. There was a lot of participation through these partnerships. The charity golf tournament with the Wildcats, $30,000. The number of families with pro kids is now up to 468 since the beginning of our association. And so the number has changed. There's a transition towards autonomy from the city of Dieppe. As Pascal said, it's not that we want to be independent, but we didn't want the leisure services do our work for us. So we're pleased to be able to take this chore away from Jocelyn, Sonia, and other people from financial services, and Nick, who's there, who also gave us a great deal of help. So I want to thank everyone who is part of that team, and thanks to Denis for all the work that they've done with us previously. Creation of relationships with local sport organizations. Soccer Dieppe, there's a good partnership happening there. Gold Blades of Dieppe, we have a good partnership with them too. Ringuette and hockey, once again, these are good partnerships that we continue to pursue and continue to work on. And finally, one of the records that we're most proud of is that we've finally gone beyond $1 million that we've put into the community through Pro Kids. So this is a huge amount that we're very proud of. Our challenges, well, incomplete documentation to assess new families, it can take a lot of time to ensure that we are truly helping people in need. We have to find the tax documents, we have to find the references. So sometimes that takes a little bit more time to get this work done. This is one of the future plans of our organization. We want to improve that. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. And also, we've had a significant increase in the number of funding requests, and so we have to work harder to find the money to do all this work. With regard to the future, we've implemented a new system for applications. I think this is the first thing that I want to tell you about. This implementation of a new system will answer two needs. The first need is the request for financial need and documentation. With the Navigateur project, we want to use the resources that we can get through KidSport and Jumpstart. How do we do this? Well, we use their form, which is going to make everything automatic. We are going to direct the people the way they do with Riverview. They direct people toward national organizations like KidSport, and they only ask if you're a new arrival. All they're asking for is a proof of your arrival. The process can be faster, and this way we can get funding at a more national level from these organizations. And so we can help them more and help more young people without using the organization's funds. So we are ensuring a sustainability for our funds so we can help more children who want to be involved in cultural activities than these other national organizations who don't help this type of activity because it's not in their mission. So this is a little issue that we want to set up. We did this with Jumpstart in the region. There was a regional committee here in Dieppe, and now it's just a national level committee. So we want to go back to the links we had with Jumpstart and see where the funding is at the national level there too. The new forms, we're going to be using our website with the new forms that are going to allow us to increase how we can easily and quickly get funds, because they are looking to go start their hockey program and the programs are full, for example. So we want to increase the speed at which we deal with these applications. We're also looking for more funding. We want to look at a sponsorship plan. And finally, we want to increase our presence in the community through our social networks and other events that we would have with Hockey Dieppe, Memram Cook, and we'll at the Fusion event that's going to be at the Uniplex. We did a 50-50 draw last time, and we're hoping that we can attend these kinds of events in the future. This is to show you how many people came to our last event, the Woolsock Walk. So it was a great success. We were very proud of it, and we raised a lot of money. Thank you. Thank you so much for your excellent work. It's certainly not easy, but you're truly engaged in ensuring this success for many years, as you have said. So questions by council members?
Non? Alors voilà.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for being there, and thank you for priming us for the next walk in wool socks. I think I'm going to have to go look for a new pair of socks. Thank you so much. Our second presentation, Mr. Leblanc Denis is going to tell us a little bit about the process of how we attribute ice time, specifically in the situation we find ourselves right now with the work that is already begun, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, it was an April Fool's joke, but we're hearing about it. Yes, it's the reality of what we've understood is happening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell you about the fall season, which is going to be a difficult one. And we'll get through it, but we wanted to tell you what our plan is here tonight and how we are going to deal with this season. It seems like a lot, but at the end of it, the closing of the ice surface is planned, and that's not going to change. It's important to note that the normal opening opening of the AGL surface is the second week of October, but the AGL surface is closed for a long period of time, and it's going to affect a lot of groups. So it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, but compared to when you look at 6th of April to the 1st of December, it's not a huge amount of time. It's the regular season normally begins in the second week of October. We had looked at our schedule, and the schedule is set until January 2, 2026. So we want to balance all the groups. So we are going to be working until January 2nd, 2026. We hope to open that surface up a little sooner. If not, it'll be going to January 2nd, 2026. Tonight, I have Mr. Béliveau, who is the manager, and Audrey, who is responsible for a reservation. I should have introduced them earlier, but I forgot. The forecast impacts, we are losing 57 hours of ice time at AGL over the usual 259.75 hours, so 22% reduction. So the people who use it during the day, is it going to be 57 lost hours once we've lost it? Not necessarily, but this is the impact, the worst case scenario. There will be reduction in hours, and there will be reduction in slots of ice time or blocks of ice time every week. Those who benefit from only one slot time. And so these slots or blocks of time are going to have to be reorganized, including changing the window or the times that they're given. And so we're going to be changing these with other arenas in the city. We wanted to, so we're going from 3 to 2 family public skates. There's an external ice surface starting in November, so it's not as if the service is not being offered. You know, the temperature is going to affect it, of course, but this ice surface can be used, and we will be able to provide some opportunities there. The worst case scenario is a reduction, which is provided for in the 2025 budget of some $76,000 in loss of income. If we had a fourth surface, clearly we're going to try and absorb some of the expenses and some income with the other 3 ice services. There's a loss of ice time for regional groups and a loss of ice time for private groups. The regional groups, you know, will have to deal with Dieppe or Moncton or Riverview. And it's a little complicated because they have a composition of teams which change from year to year. And so they have a plan. We're not going to lose it all, but there's a loss of ice time for some private groups as well. What are the factors that we're going to deal with so some agreements are already underway, and so there are some agreements that are already signed. We can't go outside of those signed agreements. Some have signed for the 2025 seal, and also the policy of allocation for L28 and how we put this group here or that group here and that time slot. And the master document will allow us to allocate the ice in a fair way. And we look at the needs of the users. These arenas are filled. The demand is high. And what are we going to do with the third arena? We have to have cooperation amongst our groups, our local groups, and to see what the needs of the users are and the real needs are in order to be able to have you could have with the younger groups, you could have 2 or 3 teams on the ice at the same time. So we have to understand the needs of all users, and we have to have equity amongst the groups. There were several Ranget groups, there were minor hockey groups, there was speed skating and artistic skating. And so the composition is different. And with regard to equity, we need ice time for hockey luge and you know, there are various groups that we need to accommodate for ice time. Our objectives, from the outset, we want to have clear and transparent communication. You know, the message is being sent to all ICE users that we want to have a $55 million project. The arena is going to close down, so we want to continue this consultation as this project moves ahead in order to ensure that we're current and we are following the dates that happen, and we can then plan properly for this. We want to prevent the loss of any regular renters of ice. We don't think we're going to, but they could go to the surrounding neighbors, other regional facilities. We want to reduce the impact on regular users. These fill our arenas every year with minor hockey. They're big users. Renget. Also, we want to optimize the use of ice time that's available and minimize the loss of revenues. And so we want to calculate the reduction in ice time on a pro rata basis in conformity with policy L8. So creation of 45-minute blocks versus 60-minute blocks after 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday. And what it offers us at the end of it all is that the glass users are going to be losing much less ice time. They're going to be there more often with a shorter period of time. So at least would allow us to do all this. Yes, it's 45 minutes, and at some point they're going to be able to get on the ice more often possibly than they have in previous years, even though they'll have 50 minutes less of ice time. Clearly, during the weekend, we've maintained the 1 hour time slots because otherwise it'd be too complicated. On the weekends, we have 1 hour time slots. And so we'll see what's going to happen, and we'll allow have the same numbers of hours. The matadors and the vedettes will not be affected. They have hours in the morning. You know, we can't change the times. We decided to not affect these two teams.
C'est qu'une semaine, il y a un groupe qui va avoir l'heure de glace. La semaine d'après, ça va être
So
l'autre.
what we're proposing is to have them share a block of ice. It would be one group 1 week and the other group the other week. So they would alternate, and we will also offer a rental schedule 7 days per week, from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Right now, it's from 11 to 3 that there is more ice time available. So these are what we're going to try and push forward, but we're going to try and fill those blocks of time. So that gives you an idea of what we're planning to try and control the situation with this ice surface closed.
Question.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions from council? Councillor Lantaigne. Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to know when we'll have more details on the exact hours, what we're going to lose. I'm thinking of minor hockey, but I'm also thinking of my own league. You know, then the guys are asking me, would we know by August or earlier? Well, I'll allow my staff to correct me if I'm wrong, but usually we ask the groups to give us the hours by the end of April. So we're already ahead of schedule. So we're going to try and let you know as quickly as possible, because in June we'll tell you what is available, but we're already in advance. So we're going to try and do it ahead of that time so that we're not last minute, so that you can make the necessary arrangements. No punishments, no, for a conflict of interest here. Well, sometimes it's, just a few minutes on the ice, but then it's 40 minutes in the change rooms afterwards. Yeah, I understand that, yeah. Okay, Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. Two
Two
questions, perhaps three. First of all, it would be important to communicate with the organizations to tell them what your communication plan is going to be, not just to give them what the schedule is going to be, but to tell them what to expect so that they can plan. I think that's important. Sometimes when you're unsure about something, the more information they have, the better they can organize because they have other things to do as well. It's not just a question, here is the schedule, it's ahead of normally, more in advance of what we normally do. I think it's just to give them more information on the process so that they can plan accordingly. Now, my two questions. In the factors and criteria that you take into consideration, you talk about the policy for the allocation of recreational facilities, L8, which is dated 2017. Have you reviewed that policy? And are there any issues? Is there anything else that you would have liked to see in that policy? Anything that we could amend so that it would work better for you in the context in the coming decisions? Yes, we've had a discussion, a meeting recently to discuss policy L8, as well as the policy on rates. And we're going to come to council shortly to see if we can change a few things, because as you said, it was adopted in 2017. Certain things have changed. We've adopted certain things. There's more groups. So we're reviewing it. Yeah, because I was looking at that as I was preparing and I was saying, oh, it's, it would need to be updated. If that's the basis that we're going to use for everything, well, I think we should update it. That would be important. And my second question, in terms of the rental schedule, from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., those are the same hours as currently, right? Did we consider the option of extending the hours, and what were the results of that analysis? Well, we have those hours because that's what we can offer with our resources on regular time. Any longer than that, then it runs into overtime. And we don't necessarily think that's a good way to proceed to offer the ice time. 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. is the regular schedule. We could open at 6, but I don't think there are very many groups that would like to have the ice after 11 p.m. Well, some of the youth groups might. No, no, they're supposed to be in bed at that time. No, but there are certain times at 7 a.m., for example, that are still available. So there might be some options for minor hockey, or, you can get your youth up a little earlier, but that option is available. So we're not close to the idea of opening earlier, but right now that's not in the plans. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Your Worship, what is important this evening is we wanted to reassure Council that we had thought about this, that we want to make sure that all of the groups are treated fairly, and that we are going to stay open-minded because there are going to be some sacrifices to be made during that 6 to 8 weeks. So that's not a long time to have of this freshly modernized, renovated facilities with new change rooms. And so all of this information is going to be shared with all of the groups. And I think groups in Dieppe have respected the fact that this is the reality. This is the reality this is the work that needs to be done. The important thing is to make sure that we go to the community and we share the information on the process. Thank you. I don't see any other questions. The only person I don't see is Councillor Leboutillier. She was here earlier. No? Oh, yes, there she is. No, I don't have a question. No, all my questions have been asked. Thank you. Thank you. Let's continue on then. Thank you for your presentation. Unless you have anything to add on the next item. Yeah, it's me again, yes. So we're here to talk to you about the Week of Francophonie. So I think we already raised the flag for the Week of Francophonie. We've been doing this for a number of years now. We've been celebrating it more than before. In 2023, I believe we were chosen to host the breakfast, the provincial breakfast. So now the programming has been expanded, and where it's a public breakfast, and that's accessible to everybody. So it's the third year, I think. And so we're really, our strategic plan is really focusing on francophonie, on the francophone identity. So as a francophone city, we want to promote this week, show, to highlight the activities and the initiatives. We have internal and external partners. It's not just the staff here, but we also use the communication department, immigration, the heritage departments participate, as well as these external partners. The government of New Brunswick helps to fund it. They give us an amount every year. The FICFA, which is the International Festival of Francophone Cinema in Acadie, the Public Library in Dieppe, the Dieppe Arts and Culture Center, and Le Pays de la Sagouine. Those are our partners for this year, and the book fair. So the Frico Franco, this is an idea that came from the communication group. There aren't a lot of areas where you can listen to francophone music in the Dieppe area. We have a lot of anglophone radio stations, but where you can go listen to French music, there aren't that many opportunities. So the idea was to prepare a playlist, 100% francophone playlist on Spotify. So we prepared our playlist, and our staff gave us suggestions of songs to put on the playlist, and I think we have over 200 songs. But yeah, so there's a playlist of 200 songs that are all from francophone artists from throughout the world, and it's really interesting. So people can go and listen to this music and discover new songs and singers. There's also the cinema. For the children at the art center this morning, there was a film that we're targeting the young population, but the next film will be for an adult population at the Arts and Culture Center on Friday night. It'll be a French movie, Fanfare. I believe it's one that has won awards and has been recognized. And in terms of Francophone cinema, there's also an improv league at the center, at the Francophone Arts and Culture Center. So this is really special. There's going to be a poetry slam workshop at the Doiron House during the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And that's at Doiron House. And there's going to be a comic book workshop with Cindy Roy at the Public Library. And then there's going to be a circle of authors and composers with Laura Leblanc, Daniel Légère, and Émilie Landry. These three artists have really helped spread the French fact here locally, but also throughout the country. And it's interesting. So they're still performing. So they're going to share their experiences, their stories, and of course, they're going to play some music. So it's an acoustic concert, so just with their guitars and their stories, but it'll be good. There's another project that is going to be organized by the Heritage Department. It's called Letters to My Acadie. They're going to start on March 21st with a poetry slam session. They're going to start collecting words or information to create phrases and words to help create another activity for the Francophonie Week. And we're starting this year to work towards next year already. So it's going to take us a long time, but the group from the heritage sector is going to work on that for the 2026 edition already. Now, amongst the resources here, we prepared a web page. Here on the Dieppe site, there's a number of web films and books and magazines, newspapers, documentaries that are available. If people want to have information, they can go find a list of all of these resources. And this is going to be ongoing. As we discover new items, we're going to add them to the list. There's also going to be a crossword puzzle, the Frico des mots. It's going to be a crossword puzzle on the municipality's website. It's going to be 100% Acadian. And I think I already talked about the online resource bank for residents. And there you have it. Thank you. Any questions from council? I see one question, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you. Well, congratulations. Great planning for the week of Francophonie. That's really nice. And I just wanted to add that I texted the Spotify playlist to my daughter, who said, "Oh my God, nice," which are good things. Yeah, really. So we're going to share that. It's really going to be shared. And so I really like that whole attracting the youth, focusing on the youth with playlists and Spotify. So we're going to share that. Congratulations. Thank you. And myself, today, I met with a group of 6 students from Mathieu Martin. I think they're in grade 7 or 8, I believe. And they just bombarded me with questions on why is it important, the francophonie fact for Dieppe. So we had lots of discussions. It was really interesting to talk to these 6 young kids and to see how interested they were on the issue. And I hope that gets that goes further, because sometimes it's difficult for these youth in grade 7, grade 8, thereabouts. And grade 9, perhaps? Okay. But it's important for them to find out and to talk about why it's important for the city of Dieppe, why it's important for them, and to continue having these discussions and not to be afraid of going full speed ahead. Thank you. Unless you have anything else to add, Denis? No, another presentation for us? Which brings us to the strategic planning. We are going to strategically plan for this new presentation. And our vast public here wants to find out what's coming up.
C'est qu'il y a eu un petit changement dans 2 chiffres, et je veux vous présenter
There's a little change in a couple of the figures, so I want to present the updated version.
Donc, ça va être notre dernier bilan pour cette planification stratégique-là.
This will be our final review for this strategic plan. It's part of our role to get information, and updated information. People have to adjust for this. I read between the lines, did I not? Marie-Claude?
Yeah.
Hein? Ah ouais.
On teste Ibrahim.
Et voilà. Merci, Ibrahim.
Thank you, Ibrahim.
Bon, ben, bonjour, Monsieur le maire.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, colleagues. As I mentioned, this is the last time we're going to give you a review of the strategic plan 2020-2024. The mission of the city is to shine as an inclusive, modern Francophone city that is proud of its Acadian roots, offering high-quality services and infrastructure in harmony with the environment. Our vision is to be a welcoming, dynamic, and ecologically responsible city, and our values are integrity, inclusion, and innovation. The strategic plan 2020-2024 had 6 strategic areas and 22 strategies. I'm going to go through each one of these focus areas one by one. In 2023, we developed a collaborative dashboard that involved all of the cities of the other departments. So these 15 different action plans that on the 22 strategies that we were to monitor. This year in 2024, what is new is that we added an indication of the actions that were to be worked on during that year. Some of them were a 2-year project. As I mentioned the last time, we only follow the achievement of our action plan annually in terms of the indicators, the KPIs, or in 2025, 2029 for the new strategic plan, we're going to have indicators that are not necessarily performance indicators, KPIs, because that's not the only thing that we measure. We're all going to have indicators of results. But in this case, it was just key performance indicators, KPIs. Now, for the first focus area, community and cultural development, and you'll notice that I added a greater number of colored blocks in the last presentation to give you an idea of what's coming up at the next strategic plan. But for our community and cultural development, then we have our strategies. There's to develop and promote the vitality of the Francophone community and Acadian pride, to enhance inclusion in cultural and recreational activities, to strengthen citizen engagement and sense of belonging, and to optimize the use of community and public spaces. So you can see in our review from last August, you've seen how much we've progressed since then in this last quarter, and we achieved 75% of our targets for this issue, for this strategic area throughout the year. Now, cultural and community development, to develop and promote the vitality of the Francophone community. What we still have to establish an action plan for Francophonie. We did a study on Francophonie, at the current state, and we've progressed on it, but there are still certain things to be finished. Now, for the enhancing the inclusion in the programming of cultural and recreational activities, we reviewed our policy L16. We presented good programming, but we're still some left to do. We still want to develop fire prevention practices for new residents, and we're about 50% towards our achieving some of these objectives. Now, these actions are ongoing, and they will be continued in 2025. We should wrap them up in 2025. Now, to strengthen citizen engagement and sense of belonging, we did achieve 80% of our objectives. We had some exploratory visits. We welcomed newcomers. We met with 127 people on 108 different occasions. We welcomed newcomers. We met with 39 newcomers in 24 different sessions. We still have a certain number of items to finish, like review policy L14 or develop a fund to support community initiatives. We're perhaps at 60% towards our target. To optimize the use of public and community spaces and equipments, we're improved access to school gymnasiums on our territory. We've achieved 60% of our objectives, but I think over 200 hours were made available to the community in the school gyms. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on that. We talked about L8 earlier, procedure L8. That was a part of the actions that were scheduled for 2024 that we didn't have the chance to finish, but we are still working on it. So that should be done in 2025 for sure. And what we haven't finished is the heritage project with the fire services, and that's part of our projects for 2025. Now, the green and sustainable city, we did update and implement the sustainable development strategy. 94% of our objectives have been met to protect our green spaces and continue to develop and expand our parks and trails, which value nature and environmental diversity. That's achieved at 95%. We didn't put any targets on this next point, but I'll come back to it. We achieved 84% of improving our different modes of transport. And so overall, it's an 84% of our objectives that have been met. Now, the development and the updating of a sustainable development strategy, we're now at 80% complete. There are still some improvements to bring to the tree bylaw, for example. Now, for the protection of our green spaces and to continue to expand parks and trails, we did work on rights of way. We're working on securing land for future needs. We're creating 2 conservation areas. We want to develop an urban forest management plan. It's been started, but it's part of our objectives in 2025, and we're going to define the master plan for parks and green spaces. Now, in terms of enhancing natural features, natural features, there's nothing in our action plan per se, but we've done all sorts of different activities. We've created a milkweed garden for the monarch butterfly, conservation for their breeding and feeding. We put a sculpture of a butterfly. We restored almost 10,000 square meters of grassy areas into flower meadows. We established a 250 square meter rain garden at the Rotary St. Anselme Park, which is the largest ever built by the Petitcodiac Watershed Alliance. We hosted nature walks, and we had some expos and distributed native plants. We gave a nature workshop at the Amiro students. We brought 200 students to the Amiro Park to make them aware of the importance of the urban forest, and we conducted an inventory of the trees with the population. So there weren't any specific actions, but we did a lot of work, and that helps to explain why we didn't achieve all of our other actions during the year, because there were there's certain things that take our attention away from our objectives, but were always great, relevant, and interesting opportunities. Now, for the improvement and the promoting of sustainable transportation, we achieved our objectives at 84%. We still have a little bit of work to do for public transit. Here, it talks about ensure the progress of the master plan for active transportation. We still have to continue working on the electrification of the fleet and to work on recycling. Am I going too quickly? No. Now, economic development and prosperity. We achieved our objectives at 97%. So we're continuing on densifying this downtown area, developing a cultural activities to develop a setting, setting that is favorable to the business development through the culture of innovation, to make Dieppe a tourist destination and a first-rate tourist destination for Francophone immigration. We work on working on densifying the downtown area. We worked on the connection zone at place 1604. We celebrated the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
Mes notes.
Excuse me, I just need to find my notes here.
Je viens pas souvent, hein, ça fait que j'ai
I don't
besoin
come very often, so I really need a class in how the technology works. So we celebrated the 80th anniversary of D-Day. We had a different programming in collaboration with the Arts and Culture Center, all of the programming offered at the Connection Zone as well. We also reviewed the densification of the downtown area plan that was started some time ago and reviewed policy for financial incentives on on densification of the downtown area. To develop a setting that is favorable to business development through a culture of innovation and creativity. We offered a referral and a professional support to entrepreneurs, startup or expanding. The Expansion Dieppe renewed its strategic plan for 2025, 2028. Through Expansion Dieppe, we saw the creation of 19 new businesses in Dieppe. They held their 22nd annual banquet to highlight our entrepreneurs. There's ongoing networking with the regional business setting, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Expansion Dieppe. There will be a recognition of the builders. Now, there's also an agreement with Dassault when we talk of creativity and innovation. That's interesting. And the Research and Innovation Center here in Dieppe is an initiative of Expansion Dieppe, and research and funding is available in partnership. Make Dieppe a tourist destination to develop an attraction and welcome and strategy to host sports and cultural events. 94% of our objectives have been met. We're at the action plan. I think we ensure the presentation of cultural and sports events. We've hosted a number of them. And I think we're at the stage now of developing an action plan for this. 81% of this action has been completed.
Some
of the sport and cultural events that we organized in 2024, the YQM, Zorka, also Canada Cup, mountain biking. 17,000 people came for that. 20,000 came to the Ranguette tournament. We had all kinds of activities, cultural and sporting events in 2024. Become the destination of choice for Francophone immigration in Atlantic Canada. We've attained 93% of our objectives in this category. So what we have to complete is, well, in fact, these are items that we thought we would participate in, but we did not have an opportunity. So that's why we're at 94%, because we were not able to participate or attend some events. But what we've done in a concrete way, we're at 94%. Development of our area and infrastructure, quality infrastructure, we're at 96%. With this issue, we have promoted the development of lands that around the urban perimeter, and we've respected the existing standards, simulate development of the area according to the axes which have already been identified, and also we were are talking about adding new infrastructure to the existing ones. We pursued a plan to densify the city center. We promoted doing work for the Gauvin îlot. This work is going to be completed in 2025. The strategy for urban growth, so the actions will be undertaken again this year, and we have implemented the action plan for housing. Maintain existing infrastructure in good state according to recognized standards. Once again, we have completed many endeavors. When we talk about assessing the condition of energy consumption, we're at 10%. We haven't moved that ahead very much this year. However, it's going to be accomplished in 2025. These are part of the projects we have for the coming year. And we've done all kinds of things, but we haven't replaced the heating equipment for the city center. We are hoping to be able to do that. We added the generator at the Uniplex. It's 94% done. We haven't been able to change our telephone system or replace all the computers that we were hoping to replace through our replacement plan. To stimulate the development of our area according to the axes which have already been identified, the city center, the business park, industrial park, updating the master plans, the business plans, and the financial structures, and to think about some $18 million worth of potential investment. So 8 million for the city center, 10 million for the industrial park and the business park. This year in 2024, overall in the city, $40 million of investments were done into commercial and industrial developments. Investments worth $40 million were undertaken in Dieppe in 2024. We worked at the project of making the market bigger. We're at 63% in that project. We were able to move ahead with regard to sales of lands. We're at 60% there too. And the updating of the master plan, we're at 75% there. And 75% of that work has been done. Improve and optimize existing infrastructure and add new infrastructure to provide for future needs globally. This strategy has been completed. For the planning part, we're talking about planning and preparing phase 1 of extending Dieppe Boulevard. We're going to be working at that. Only 3% of that work has been done so far. We want to complete the project. And I would say that most of the things on this slide, we want to complete the construction of 11 capital projects. We're at 93% there. It's yellow, but that's almost 100% completed. Improve infrastructure, existing infrastructure, and add new infrastructure. We want to meet the people along Leblanc Road who are affected by frontage issues and plan adding 3 new bus shelters. These are the things that we're going to undertake in 2025. The same thing here. I'm not going to go through each of these things to get into the weeds of the details, but these are things that have been accomplished or underway in 2024. Concerning the issue of citizen participation, we had 2 strategies: increase citizen participation in the decision-making process, and also pursue diversification of communication tools with the population. So these were undertaken and were supposed to be done by December 2024. The citizen participation, integrate this in the communication service. It's at 75%. We have a participation guide for the public, and also we have a guide for public participation that's done, and there are 5 exercises for public consultation. Pursue diversification of communication tools with the population. We have developed information guides with regard to municipal responsibilities and functions. We have put into place an alert system to manage major events. And with regard to accounting rules, we have the improved the information available on capital projects and added a page on our website dedicated to construction projects. I'm giving you these small details because we are really communicating with people, and we're trying to get the message out as much as possible. So seeing these figures sometimes, perhaps we don't often realize that, 88 speeches were done, so written and spoken at public gatherings. 98 press releases were sent out. For our social medias, we've had an increase of subscribers. Once again, this is for the year concluding to 2024. We don't know. There are fewer people on X, formerly known as Twitter. People are abandoning X, formerly known as Twitter. Our social media, we're in 2024, things changed quite a bit. The last issue is governance and quality municipal management. Overall, we've attained 84% of our targets. So improve transparency of municipal governance, improve attention and constant support to our human resources, and for the betterment of our citizens, and pursue our efforts to have healthy financial management at all levels, and to constantly improve our work methods and processes. With regard to governance and quality municipal management, we're at 97% of our objectives. We're seeing, to do the strategic planning exercise, it's done. You've passed it already. And so what's left to do there is to look at all the overall employees and have it validated, and see how the information is provided, and also put the strategic plan up everywhere and publish it. We only have left to learn how to use it and be able to make reports and to have them be a little more complete. 89% of our objectives have been attained here. So we have assessed our human resources needs. I think we're at 75% and 50% with regard to hiring. So this is all part of our objectives. In 2025, 2026, increase expertise for the environmental service, another important part of our objectives. With regard, we had the conversion of 12 positions. We had 70% of these positions have been operationalized so far. The same thing here. We're in negotiation, we're in bargaining with some units. We have to implement our plan. We have the inventory that has been done. We're at 80% there. Pursue our efforts with regard to healthy financial management. 75% of our objectives have been accomplished. For purchasing and public purchases, we have hired a person whose responsibility is to do this work, but that's going to be concluded in 2025, and the general budget of water and sewage services implement a culture of constant continuing improvement, the opportunity to meet our new performance director. So we have someone who is helping us in that. And this project is going to continue and is going to follow on. And we'll be coordinating the planning, the next strategic planning, and is going to be with us all the time. Organize various bylaws. When we talk about constantly improving our work methods, we'll be bringing this to you very soon so you can review the authorization levels. I'm going to let you have a quick look at this, but I'm not going to give you a list to implement authentication. We're at 98% there. We can, you see it's all in yellow, but it's 80 or 90% done, or 60% completed. And so with the system, we're at 85% of what we had estimated we were going to be doing. For performance and continuing improvement, in 2024, reviewed the direction and management and the coordinator for constant continuing improvement and the whole notion of performance. We posted the position and we hired someone to this position in 2024. Overall, we attained 80% of our objectives in 2024. The results indicate an excellent rate of success in obtaining our annual objectives, demonstrating of strong engagement for community development and improving infrastructure. When we look at what we've done, we see that there is a very strong focus on an engagement here. With regard to our successes, they are very promising for the future and show that we have a positive dynamic within the organization. For 2025-2029, this means we've concluded the plan for 2020-2024. So what we had put in that strategic plan is going to continue. Our new plan means we're going to keep the same mission, we have the same values, and we're going to reinforce the vision of a Francophone city, which is inclusive and innovative. We are adjusting to reflect new realities, rapid growth of the population, need for housing, preservation of the environment, and reinforcing our feeling of security. So the next planning for strategic purposes, we had 6 issues, 22 strategies last time, and all the action plans. Now we're going to have, in 2025-2029, there are 4 new orientations, 15 strategic objectives. And we have an action plan over a 5-year time period. If we take 2025, there are 28 actions to be added to this plan that are linked to our objective, our strategic objectives. There are notions which I'm thinking of economic development, for example, or economic development. But there is no issue or an orientation only for economic development. It's part of it. They all come together. So that's it for 2024, this strategic planning. And I'm very eager to give you the results for the next strategic planning. And that is going to look a little different. Have you any questions? Thank you. Questions? Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for this presentation. Congratulations to the team. You've done excellent work. I have a question about the part on community development, cultural point 2, enrich the programming of cultural activities and leisure activities. That's on page 37 for us. I'm not sure what page it would be for you. We're talking about reviewing the L16 policy, L10. It's completed, it's coming forward for us. So I'm looking at this, and is this policy, which is going to be drafted, will it include other policies? Like some are done. I think there are 5 of them that look similar to each other. I noted that one for subsidies for welcoming events. L6, which is 2013, is for festivals in Dieppe. We're talking about the financial aspect. Policy A37, 2015, sponsorship. L15, 2003, providing financing to community groups. They're all similar.
Peut-être Denis aussi qui peut.
Ouais.
C'est son secteur, ça.
Ouais,
Coïncidence qu'il est ici
ouais.
ce soir.
Oui.
Puis la dernière aussi,
You, and the last one was policy L13, 2015, partnerships with the nonprofit sector. So some work had been done with a consultant, and we had been mandated to put a lot of policies together because many of them said the same thing. So this work is currently underway. It's not completed yet, but there's a strategy and a vision behind it. Right now, we're not using all of them. So when we come to council with requests for sponsorship or funding, we no longer use L15, for example. And also with regard to sponsorship, the sponsorships are managed by communication. And so we have to make sure that they're all talking to each other. So there should be one door for entry to all of them. We are aware that some of these policies are obsolete. So there's something that they can do to improve that? Yes, thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. First of all, I applaud the process because the process may seem quite heavy and may seem heavy to receive it, but it's not. It's a lot of information, but it's important for follow-up on things that are our responsibility. So I want to thank you very much for the work that you've done in the whole process, and I thank the employees for the work that they've done as well. And it's great to be able to see it documented and to see all these points. And I'm looking forward to seeing the improvements that you're going to bring to the 2025-2029 plan. I think more improvements are going to allow us to use this as a tool, and this tool is going to be more used by members of council in our thought process. So I encourage you to continue along in the process, and I want to tell you I appreciate it. I have a question related to the planning process. So I'm looking at the years, 2024 and then 2025 to 29. It seems that we're aligning with the election years that we had. So we're aligning with the mandates of councils. And now we've got the Act on Local Governance. So we find ourselves in a situation in 2025, we're adopting a strategy for 4 years, planning, which is always important to have, but we're doing it a year before we have an election. And so having lived the situation where you come in as a new member and you find yourself in a scenario where the strategic plan that has already been done for you, and that's good, you have continuity in all of that, but where is there a possibility to influence this when you come in as a new council member? So I'd be interested to hear your ideas, for these good years, and what is the sweet spot for this? Where is it the most logical to have a strategic plan over 4 years with 4-year mandates? And where is it logical to do this with planning? And are we in the right spot for it in the whole process? I'm going to take this question, Your Worship. For many years now, we have had a strategic plan. It's not at all related to election years. It refers to the first year that the municipality passed a strategic plan. And in good practices, they should be 5-year plans. So every year, we did a presentation to council. We made updates when a new council arrived after municipal elections. We review, we summarize. Then council can review some things. And so we did that with you as well. So these are 5-year plans. We follow the 5-year plan. When the year's over, we do a review, revise a new 5-year plan. So what we did last fall, we passed at the end of the year, and now we have a strategic plan for 5 years. And when we have elections next May, we'll have an opportunity to present to council this new strategic plan, an opportunity to review or revise their things if they wish to do so, and then we bring it back to the public to have it passed. I'm not saying, I'm talking about what we have done in the past, and things worked well. I have no objections, but in the concept of planning, are we at the right place for it? Are we maximizing the possibility of when we're going to use it, especially if we use it as a tool? And we use it to its full maximum because it's excellent work. It's important information. And so I want to leave this as a comment, for further thinking. Thank you. It's not a criticism, quite the opposite. I'm astonished that we can maximize the value of this. Councillor Le Boutillier, you had something to add? That's a no. Okay, let us continue with Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the great work. As Councillor Godbout has stated, it's great work that you've accomplished, and it was done really well. I'm looking more toward the future. When we talk about a strategic plan, 25-29, we're talking about a more explicit focus on the decline of French, Acadian identity and Francophone immigration. And maybe this doesn't go into a strategic plan, but I think I addressed this to council members and to our CAO. I have concerns with regard to the building of an English-speaking school near a French-speaking school. I know you're going to tell me that we have no say in that. It's the department's decision. But I think that we have to intervene with the minister and tell them of our concerns, and also with our MLAs. I think that the council should intervene at the departmental level. We have a Francophone minister who's very much aware of the decline in French in New Brunswick and elsewhere in Canada. And so I think, in my opinion, we should be intervening. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your comment. Councillor Brideau. Well, the congratulations have already been expressed. That's what I wanted to say as I was listening to you speak. But congratulations, because when the planning was done and we focused on the objectives that we could complete, that we could undertake, the results you've just shared with us, it's great to hear this. And congratulations to all staff members who worked on this. I'm sure that you wore the pencils down to the nub doing this work. I just wanted to come back to what Councillor Thibodeau has just made, because I'm 100% in agreement with him. I think we now have to get together and let them know of our unhappiness, and to review this situation with regard to this school that they've decided to put on the table. I'm glad that Councillor Thibodeau raised this subject, and we'll continue with that. Thank you, ma'am, once again for your presentation. Your Worship, if you will allow, because something has been raised, we want to say that the municipality has contacted the department. We're on a working group, as a member, we have shared the places where we thought it would be plausible to put the infrastructure of this Anglophone school. You have to work with the context of the ability to have that kind of school. We're part of the discussions. And so it's not the municipality that chooses the final site, nor the city that chooses the property. But I want to assure you that we're having conversations with the province and we'll give you an update on the ongoing discussions. But I simply wanted to share that information with you at this time. Thank you. I am going to quickly add something on this matter. Having attended some meetings, I can say that the staff responsible for this file in the province are very much aware, because we have been doing this at every single meeting. The subject gets brought up every time. And I think that as our CEO has just said, it is up to us to be alert and watchful, and maybe we should start inviting other members of council to come to the table to help make them aware, because I'm pretty much convinced that they are extremely aware of this matter. We remind them at every single meeting that we attend, but we'd be more than happy to see other people come along and share their opinions.
Ce que je retiens de ce beau
I have picked up from this great job that was presented this evening is everything that we have in front of us, especially the pressure that we're going to put on our latest newcomer when we talk about continuous improvement. For those who know us, you know that it was my special focus area for when in my own life outside of council in my previous life. So I would ask you, members of staff, to put the effort in, and I have no doubts that you do already from what I've seen over the years. And I'm really happy that we finally found somebody to continue working on this issue. So that said, thank you for your presentation, and we're going to continue on with the next item. Well, I would like to thank you for your comments. I'm going to take these comments and take them back to the whole team, because all I did was bring all of this information together, but the work was done by all of the team members, all of my colleagues. They're the ones who did the work. So I'm taking your kind words for my colleagues. Thank you. Thank you. And our next item this evening, which should be the last one this evening, I believe. It's an update. No, it's not. No, it's the second to last item. We're talking about tourism, the tourism strategy for the area. So I would ask our special guest to come up. If you allow me, I would like a word. Yes, we have a consultant here to present the tourism strategy and festival development plan, but let me explain the context. These two things are two different situations. Of course, the strategic plan, well, after the pandemic, of course, tourism has changed altogether. Before the pandemic, well, the pandemic changed things, and their creations of destinations of Moncton came to life. And so we want to find out what the role of our municipality is, and the Regional Services Commission has a role to play now. But what are the responsibilities of the city? And that's why we asked, it's what we asked Camille to focus on. And for the development, we asked her to talk about festival development, to to see, we wanted to make sure we were doing the right thing, if we had events that are of the right scope, of the right size, and we asked Camille to develop the overarching concepts. And I'd just like to remind you that 50% of this was paid by l'école. So if the strategy was funded, we could ask for funding for other items in the strategy. I just wanted to explain
quand même qu'est-ce qui est le travail qui a été fait, puis s'il y a des commentaires et
but we
des,
did want to introduce Camille, and we wanted to introduce the work that has been done. And if you have any comments or questions, please, you can ask them this evening. And we can always change the report accordingly.
c'est bon.
Merci. Moi, je suis pas grande comme toi.
Bonsoir, bienvenue.
Camille, I'm not as tall as you are. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. There you go. Thank you. I'd like to start by saying I'm very intimidated. This is the first time I'm presenting like this, and I get the impression I'm like in court here. No, there's only 20,000 people online listening to you too. Don't worry. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Well, thank you, Denis, for the presentation, the introduction of the strategy. Let me introduce myself very quickly. You can hear from my accent that I'm not born on this side of the Atlantic. I'm one of the Francophone immigrants, very happy to be here in Dieppe. I've been here for 9 years in New Brunswick, 15 years in Canada, and 7 years since I built my Touriscope business here in Dieppe to serve the Francophone communities in minority situation in order to help develop tourism and to highlight their identity through tourism. I've worked with a number of communities throughout New Brunswick and the Atlantic area. And Denis, I'm happy that you mentioned the relationship with ACOA, because throughout the strategic planning process, we tried to make sure that the plan designed for Dieppe would be aligned with the Destination Canada, the ACOA, and the Department of Tourism focus area. So their strategy is very similar. So this evening, I'm going to present where we're at in our strategic plan for the development of tourism here in Dieppe, but at very high level. There'll be two phases. First of all, a general tourism strategy, and from there, the strategy towards a plan to create a new festival. The idea of this festival would be a festival that would meet the needs of the residents first and foremost, but that would be of sufficient size to bring in visitors from outside. The idea wasn't only a community festival, but a tourism festival. And by doing so, we wanted to become a product of the implementation of this strategy, that there be alignment between the two. So here you see the index, and I think you received the document in advance. So we did fairly comprehensive research. We realized when we started working with Dieppe that there had already been work done on tourism, but everything that was in relation to the knowledge of the tourism industry, its ecosystem, and the client profiles, it needed to be reworked and more detailed. So a large part of the work was on that, and I will present it in a moment. And then I'll talk about our strategic directions towards the development of tourism and the festival. Very quickly, the methodology we used, we divided it in 3 major stages for the strategy. We analyzed, rethought, and transformed. This is a very general approach used in work with communities or any organization that wants to develop tourism. To analyze, by that we mean to establish the current situation. Where are we at? We wanted to diagnose the current situation of tourism development here in Dieppe. When I started meeting with people on this, when I asked them where we're at in terms of tourism development, unanimously people answered, no, we have no tourism development, but we have hotels, we have Champlain Pace, we have festivals that welcome visitors. So you can't say that there isn't any tourism development, but we wanted really to set the stage of the current situation. We also worked on where we looked at destinations that are similar. We didn't want to reinvent anything new here, but if there are best practices elsewhere, we wanted to use them if possible. And we wanted to also look at the visitors, because everything we're going to be developing is for the residents, but also for visitors. If we develop new products, if we put a lot of energy into the development of new products that don't meet the needs of visitors, well, then we're really beside the point. So we needed to analyze, that was all under the analysis phase. The second one was to rethink. We wanted a strategy that came from the residents. We used an approach developed by a COA. In fact, you're the first municipality to put this to the test. This is an approach, an asset-based approach. It's a new way of approaching tourism development. It's really based on regenerative development. The idea that when a visitor leaves the municipality of Dieppe, let's say the municipality of Dieppe is in a better state than when the visitor arrived. We don't want to development that is an all-inclusive here in the south, but where the destination is going to be harmed by the presence of the visitor. What we're trying to achieve is that Dieppe, as a territory, its infrastructure and the benefits and the residents benefit from the arrival of visitors. And using that method, we have to consult the residents and those who are part of the tourism ecosystem of Dieppe and our partners. And the transform stage was based on the research that is very macro and on consultations that are micro. At the micro level, we come up to a harmonious development. So it's like if you have external and internal development and the harmonious development in the middle in order to transform tourism development in Dieppe. And then from that, of course, we have to develop a plan for the development of the festival, and this is what you see here. We started with the current state based on research. We did a survey, and I'm going to talk about this survey very quickly because we're more than impressed by the level of participation by residents in Dieppe. We achieved our objectives in 2 days where we had planned on 3 weeks. So it really showed the engagement of the residents, my co-citizens, the residents of Dieppe, especially because we had really oriented the question on the identity of Dieppe, which shows that the Francophone and Anglophone citizens of Dieppe want to speak out on the issue and have things to say about it. And then if I come back to the festival, then once again, still after many consultations, we designed, conceptualized the idea of this future festival after a lot of consultations and co-creation workshops with the tourism ecosystem and partners. And then we got to the stages of feasibility per se. So that was the overall methodology. Now, the strategy itself, I just wanted to show you the stakeholders who were consulted, because the idea of developing a tourism destination is not to produce a product that is here in its little corner, but to see who are the stakeholders of other ecosystems, and we try to involve them at different levels. We don't need to involve all stakeholders at the same level. Now, for our client profiles, and I'm coming back to what I had said in the introduction, the Department of Tourism put a lot of effort and money and energy to collect data on visitors to New Brunswick. These are data that we can use. And of course, in order to align our Dieppe strategy to the New Brunswick strategy, that itself is aligned to Destination Canada's strategy, and using the same nodes, talk the same things, using the same languages is beneficial. So we used those data in order to create different visitor profiles. You can see there are a number of them. Here we modelized it as persons, and these are marketing tools. I mean, this is from the data, but I'm giving you the the major categories. The first category of visitor, I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're the ones who arrive first. When you think of visitors to Dieppe, you think of the Quebec family, the Gagnon family, let's say, from Three Rivers, two adults, two children. They're looking for adventure, an adventure tour. Well, they say an adventure tour, but actually what they're looking is for safety, stability, and outdoor activities, but controlled ones. Now, as we also have Jennifer and Mark, who are young, a young couple from Toronto. They're looking for something completely different. They're looking for micro breweries. They're looking for authentic interactions with residents. Everything that is a little cliche about Acadie, what they saw on the social media. They want to eat lobster. They want to take selfies in front of the Acadian flag, and they'll probably come for August 15th. So they're looking for something authentic, but they're also using the cliches of the social media. Now, the Boudreau family, of course, we can't forget. They're visitors, even they're from New Brunswick itself. The definition of a tourist, which is accepted globally in Canada, is somebody who sleeps outside of their daily setting. Somebody who lives in Miramichi, for example, who comes to spend one night in Dieppe and goes shopping to the Costco and won't go anything else than go to the Costco and then go back to Miramichi, technically that person is considered a tourist. Their expenses, their choice of Dieppe rather than another area are the same as somebody who comes from Vancouver. So the Boudreau family comes from the Maritimes and doesn't live very far away, but are still considered tourists and it's bring in benefits for the residents of Dieppe and for investors. And then you have the Grandy family. They're passionate about sports. Well, perhaps their children are more passionate about sports than the parents, but they come for tournaments. And we know that Dieppe, we have a sports tournament clientele, and this is an important clientele that is very important for the survival of our tourism operators and restaurants, especially in the low season. To fill hospitals from October to May, we absolutely need these sports tournament visitors here in Dieppe. And then you have the Lizo family, Lizotte, depending on how you pronounce it. These are residents of Tracadie. This is a clientele that is very special to Dieppe, but very real. These are the grandparents from the north of the province that come to visit their children and their grandchildren here in Dieppe. Once again, these are clients that we don't consider tourists per se, but they are tourists because they're not necessarily going to speak in the hotel unless there's fighting in the family, but otherwise they're going to sleep with the family, but they will go to a restaurant. They might go to Champlain Place. If there are any activities or events, they'll go to Place 1604, for example. So they're really important for tourism development, generally speaking, here in Dieppe. So those are the client profiles, the major client profiles. They're the ones that we have to include in our perspectives when we develop a strategy. And I haven't even talked about the types of products that we should develop. There's a lot of work, a lot of awareness raising. We have to determine what type of clients, what type of ecosystem are we in before we start talking about product development. Now, the trend analysis of the trends, well, this is very helpful in tourism development because development of tourist products takes a lot of money, a lot of energy, perhaps developing infrastructure. So if you develop something, you want to make sure that you're ahead of the trends and not behind them. So let's say that everything on the development of a product that is not green, that is not environmentally friendly, is not something that I would consider as a consultant in tourism, because we know that the tendencies, the trends are more on sustainable development and rather than on something that is going to be harmful for the environment and the residents. So the fact that we develop products that fit into this framework are very important. For Dieppe, we've isolated different tendencies. I'm not going to go into all the details here, but the first one would be the urban nature. Urban nature tourism. Because why is this? Well, in our consultations, we realized that one of the major assets of Dieppe is that is everything that concerns urban outdoor infrastructure. The idea that you're outdoors, but you're still in an urban setting. So it's easy access to the trails, to the bike trails, to the walking trails, and so on. So, and if we look at the regions and the municipalities around us, you can see that Dieppe is leading or amongst the leaders. And this is one of the marketing argument to bring in visitors. And when we think of our visitors, these are the ones that we're going to aim for. Our visitors from Quebec, that family, for example, from Quebec, if they can go walk on the bike trail at the end of the day, well, that's something that will positively influence their time spent here. So here are some examples of how to develop, how to integrate the outdoor features in an urban setting. And then you have these dynamic downtown area. This is a very strong tendency in North America, where historically the downtown areas weren't very dynamic, but it's coming back. This animation at the downtown. There are sorts of new facilities that in Toronto, for example, is putting a lot of energy to try and revitalize its downtown. And the city of Montreal, that over the last few years has put a lot of effort into revitalizing its the neighborhood of the show neighborhood, the show's neighborhood. And so, yes, when in Dieppe, when you come to the Maritimes, you come mostly for the outdoor features, the beach and the forest and trails. And if I decide to come to Dieppe rather than Cocagne, it's because I want services in the urban center. By that, I mean shopping. I mean, not just in the big chains. I mean, bars, restaurants, the nightlife, art. There's a focus on the heritage. It's all of that. Now, in the urban animated downtown areas, we expect to see innovation as well. And this is great because this is one of our values that came out in the strategic plan, is to put value on innovation. So there's some examples here of placemaking, for example. The idea is that through the urban development, the urban facilities, we want to really value the identity of the municipality. For example, Montreal decided it was going to position itself as an innovative city in its support of the arts. So they revamped the whole neighborhood. They show this concert neighborhood to make it accessible to residents and visitors. And the third tendency is the sports tourism. And I talked how important that was. The objective of this one is not only to have Dieppe live from tourism from May to September, but throughout the year. And of course, the sports tourism can help us in that regard. And the same thing for the shopping tourism. The sports tourism and shopping tourism are two dimensions that were in the former strategy and that we brought back because it's still current. Visitors in Dieppe today come, not all of them, but many of them come for shopping and for the sports tournaments. Now, heritage and modern times. I want to come back to the idea of celebrating our veterans. And myself, it's by starting to work on this strategy that I realized the potential that Dieppe has as a city of veterans. Just through the name of the municipality, I had never realized that Place 1604 had so much infrastructure that celebrates the link with Dieppe in France. I was French, but it had never crossed my mind. And there's definitely something to work on there without necessarily saying it is the city for veterans, but this is a feature that is there. And factually, the city of Dieppe is called Dieppe because of the history of the veterans, and it's a history that fascinates. This whole history of veterans is a story that fascinates people and will do so for times to come. So now the role of municipalities in the development of tourism, there has to be good, strong municipal governance in order to support this development, even if you have excellent products. A product by itself cannot be sold, cannot be structured by itself, and there would be no new investments if there isn't a strong governance and leadership from the municipality. Municipal leadership comes with marketing as well. Now, in terms of comparable destinations, in order to develop, to make recommendations, we based ourselves on best practices from elsewhere. We chose 6 other destinations that seemed similar, that were inspirational in terms of what they implemented. So very quickly, now, the first city here on the list, it was Boulder, and it focused on sustainable development and local consumption. So it really tried to highlight local entrepreneurs and the very small, not only small and medium-sized businesses, but very small, very small businesses. So there were incentives to attract small businesses and incentives to support local consumption. Queenstown in New Zealand was very inspiring because they integrated the open air in this very urban center. It's a big city, Queenstown, but you can do outdoor activities. You can jump from a parachute in Queenstown. Downtown, you can do rock climbing. You can do kayak, hiking, anything you want. Now, I don't consider motorized vehicle like snowmobiles or ski-doos, but but they really focused on that and very successfully, especially that they did it by respecting sustainable and environmental development. Three Rivers in Quebec is a destination that has exploded over the last 10 or 15 years in Quebec. For a long time, it was the pit stop between Montreal and Quebec for a long time, but people would just stop there for a pit stop, quite frankly. But we saw a little bit of similarity, not as a pit stop here, but the fact that Moncton is still sometimes seen as a destination in the southeast, and Shediac, which is a major competitor, and we're somewhere between the two, between Moncton and Shediac. People come to Dieppe quite often without knowing that they're in Dieppe. They go to Champlain Place without knowing they're in Dieppe. They land at the airport without knowing that they're in Dieppe, and they go to the hotel without knowing that it's Dieppe. So we wanted to compare it to Three Rivers. And in Three Rivers, where they really stand out is in the development of events, because when you don't have any specific attractions, you try and you want to try and focus on these big events to attract people. Kingston in Ontario is another one that is here because of its military heritage. They succeeded in positioning themselves between Montreal and Toronto as a stop. It's not just a pit stop, but also to discover the heritage that is very special. Fribourg in Switzerland, this is because of their linguistic um, features. They have 3 official languages in Switzerland, and this city was able to focus on the part and highlight the fact that these 3 languages live very harmoniously and have for a long time. So there's a relationship here, of course, with our bilingualism. And then Gand in Belgium, this is in relation with the integration of sustainable development practices. So this is a small municipality, but since the Middle Ages, they've really been focusing on economic development and on the development of industry, factories. It was often a long time thought of a factory town, but it was able to position itself as a sustainable development destination. Now, very quickly, I'm going to go to the internal perceptions, where, as I mentioned, we tried to take the time to consult the residents as much as possible and people who are responsible for tourism development to try and understand how they perceive Dieppe. because even if I'm a resident of Dieppe, it's difficult and it's not desirable for me as a consultant to say, okay, Dieppe is this and Dieppe is that, and this is what you need to do now. This is what you should develop and promote. The idea of harmonious tourism development is that behind it is that the destination be very clear on what it wants to show of itself. It has to know its own identity. It has to understand what it wants to show to people from the outside, so that people from outside understand the identity of this destination town. It's not up to me to decide what the identity of Dieppe is, but even though I have my own ideas, so we consulted different ways through interviews, through focus groups, through workshops, and there were a number of different ways of trying to determine how the residents of Dieppe saw Dieppe, because it's the workshops, the focus group members and the participants in the co-creation workshops are already engaged, so there might be somewhat bias. But if we want to develop, we have to base our ideas on these people who are engaged. So they had great ideas. Now, this is what came out in terms of the identity. Now, as a residents, not only as tourism, but as residents, they wanted to be welcoming and warm and want to be proudly francophone. This came out even from the Anglophones. We were quite surprised to see that the Anglophones identified Dieppe as a francophone city. Now, did they choose to live in Dieppe because of that? Perhaps not. But what we saw from new Anglophone newcomers, the choice of living in Dieppe because it's a bilingual city, and this was a stronger attraction than those who were non-native arriving in Dieppe. Now, another interesting point was everything that concerns the connection with nature. As I mentioned, we want this daily access to nature trails and the outdoors. It's a very focused on family here in the city in terms of the security, in terms of the infrastructure, and very unanimously, people recognize the dynamic nature and the growth of the city.
Quel animal
When
représente
we ask them what animal represents the city of Dieppe, it is important, because if we ask them what are the values for you, it's a little more complex. But what came out is the beaver, because it represents hard work and the construction of a solid future, because demographically speaking, many citizens of Dieppe are workers. It's a young population, which is still in the working world. This is one of the values that came out. The fox, which reflects intelligence and adaptability, and the squirrel, representing liveliness and agility, which are symbols of Dieppe. Many people brought these, talked about pheasants, but there were no values attached to them, but they talked about pheasants being around Dieppe. So the fundamental values, the basic values that came out of this are resilience, solidarity, innovation, and vision. These are values which are close to the ones that we have mentioned in the last strategic plan. For opportunities for development identified by the committee, we were pleasantly surprised that sustainable tourism was strongly mentioned, and we understand that we want sustainable development, but we don't want it at any price. I'm very proud to live in a community where it is like this, because people ask us in some communities, do we have tourism development at any price? If it goes against the well-being of residents, then no worries. But I'm pleased to see that this came out very strongly as the will for this development to be sustainable. We didn't push for anything, but the idea of a festival came out again. We didn't orient the questions, but people seem to be interested in the development of a tourism attracting festival. Many mentioned improving community infrastructure, expansion of the Dieppe market. We didn't mention that at all, but it came out in consultations. Anything that's related to environmental initiatives, which isn't necessarily the same thing as sustainable tourism. It's a little more targeted, and anything involving the promotion of Acadian culture and francophonie. We see that it was as strongly put forward by residents as by new arrivals. With regard to the mobilizing ideas by the people who were consulted, everything that involves having a consultation committee with businesses, there's a very deepening relationship between tourism operators and the municipality. And so they'd like to have more active participation in tourism development through a committee like this, create a Christmas market. Everything looks at missed opportunities in the development of the marsh. Residents see an opportunity to develop the marsh as an infrastructure for them, but also to attract tourists and to develop the airport area. I'll quickly go over this. As I was saying, we have diagnosed the attractiveness of the destination. We looked at various points which show how attractive the destination is. So there's nature, built leadership, built cultural life, outside activities, lodging, good food, and tourism route is officially recognized as a tourism route by the government, and that's interesting. You will see in this diagram, it's interesting because it doesn't necessarily mean that these dimensions don't exist, but if they're not properly structured, you can see that we have natural attractions and viewpoints, we have built heritage. If they're not structured for tourism, either because there are no signs or there are no trails, there are no bike paths, it's as if they didn't exist. So there are all kinds of things, but we have to structure them further. We know that there is a built heritage which has been accounted for, but if there is no tourism offer, then touristically speaking, it's as if they didn't exist at all. This is with regard to management. Some points should be reinforced, like transportation. Many visitors come to see a city and they want to see public transportation. That's part of their expectations, especially those who live in urban centers. So Quebec visitors and Ontario visitors have transportation, which is part of their everyday lives. And so there are various items that have to be worked on. The variety of visitors is also an issue. So it's seasonal, but when it's a tournament season, all kinds of people come up, and then there's nothing until the summer, and then there's nothing again until later on in the year. With regard to determining changes, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we want to make sure there's a link between this and the strategy you'll see on the last website, and it's related to overall development and the willingness to develop Dieppe. So the first priority is the development of the heritage identity of Dieppe and clarify whether it's Acadian or Francophone, and related to the past, heritage and what's happening in Dieppe. The other part is transportation for people who are passing through. So sporting and shopping tourism, those who want to come to tournaments in Moncton and who go to Place Champlain for shopping. So there's sporting tourism, those who use the infrastructure of the Uniplex, but who go to eat in Moncton and go to sleep in Moncton. We want them to stay here. So we want to transform this passing tourism phase into something more concrete, so that they're not only there to use the infrastructure, but take advantage of the opportunity to discover the surrounding community. And the last priority is to use how dynamic the city is. So the municipality wanted to start its strategic planning, but also a city where the residents want to develop further. We have developed a tourism vision, which is related to the general strategy, planning strategy. We have an exemplary tourism destination. It's very important. The objective is not to position oneself as a tourism destination, but to inspire the rest of New Brunswick and the rest of Canada eventually to continue its innovative and harmonious development and to integrate the way it is dynamic, it's the francophonie and its Acadian roots in a harmonious and green way. So harmonious for our residents and green for the spaces around us. The tourism mission for the city of Dieppe is to see what we're going to do to realize this vision, to value the specific cultural and natural components to sustain the ecosystem by offering a reinvented urban center respecting the environment and local values. I'm glad that the reinvented urban experience came out and also keeping the local values alive. In the mission itself, we recognize that Dieppe is not like all other cities. When you get to Dieppe, you have a new idea of what a city vacation or an urban vacation is like. The major tourism objectives affirm the distinctive identity of Dieppe, position Dieppe as a unique destination by valuing its heritage, its identity, its strengths, and its values to make it different from other destinations. And other destinations close by is not just Moncton, but it's Shediac, PEI, other places like even like as far as Quebec. So the potential to attract people from outside to sustain the development of attraction experiences and services to encourage visitors to prolong their stay and discover Dieppe beyond their family, shopping, and sporting events. So structure, strong governance, and better cooperation between stakeholders to ensure tourism development, which respects the quality of life of the residents and is integrated in a sustainable way into this area. So that's the objective. With regard to developing a festival, I'm almost there. I'm not going to look at all, we're not going to look at all the comparables, but to affirm the distinctive identity of Dieppe, an event like this would allow us to maintain this objective, have a urban destination without a festival is difficult to position in an external market, and have participatory and harmonious tourism outside of restaurants, bars, and nightlife. The festival is the best way for people to meet and do harmonious tourism development, like a festival which is addressed to visitors and residents. Study of comparables, I'll go quickly. It's inspired by various festivals. Same strategy, the summer festival in Quebec. What we retain from this festival is that the festival happens throughout the city. Yes, there's infrastructure for these events. When you go to the city of Quebec, all urban centers and streets are happening and active. The Western Festival in Saint-Tite, it's a small town that has 4,000 residents and welcomes 400,000 people every year. So, they manage to greet and manage all of this over years because they have one main theme related to the city history, which is something which was built in Saint-Tite, gave them the idea of having a Western festival. So they didn't spread it out everywhere. They really kept their focus on one theme, which is very attractive for visitors. The Celtic Colors International Festival, this one inspired us because it is a fall festival which brings people in from everywhere throughout the world to a very far-flung place. In our own perspective, imagine someone who comes to Halifax and who will drive all the way to Cape Breton, although it's still far away, but it's a very concentrated theme which deals with the heritage identity of this residence. And finally, the Festival of Acadians and Creole in Louisiana deals with the diversity of activities that are proposed related to an identity theme. So when you go to a festival in Louisiana, there's music, there's food, there are tourism experiences, there are conferences and presentations with university people. There's a huge identity exchange happening, but everyone is well seen. Even if you're not Acadian, you feel an attachment to this festival. Clearly, we analyzed what the competition was doing because the idea, and when we talk about a municipal festival, so we still looked at what's happening elsewhere. So you can see that we looked at the dates. And so we're not going to propose something the same week as the other surrounding communities are having festivals, and especially with regard to the theme. So everything that looks like very specialized themes, like film and comedy, humor, there are already comedy and humor festivals. And you can see here that where there is something to fill in is in the green spaces. And so it could be a provincial or national type of festival, which has the ability to bring people in from other provinces or from another country, and is of a general nature. We realize that touristically speaking in this area, there is a lack of general themes. So activities that are put forward have a music festival only. You have to make sure that visitors who come from far away, unless you have major headliners, these are things that look like the Festival of the Acadiens and Creole in Louisiana. These have activities and more a chance of having people from outside.
Sondage, oui, c'est ça.
So
Donc,
yes, the survey. We were hoping to get 400 people responding. We had almost 600 in just 2 days. So 658 people responded, Francophone and Anglophone. We know that some people respond in English even though they identify as Francophones. So it wasn't necessarily an important figure for us, but it was interesting to see who responded. So very quickly, so according to age, it's similar to the population, even though there are a lot of 55 and over, perhaps more than the actual demographic representation of Dieppe. But at the same time, these are people, well, these are people who we're targeting the 55 and over because they're the ones quite often who will get involved as volunteers in festivals. So that's important. Now, based on the respondents, the best month to have a festival is June or July. It's interesting to note that when we asked them how long it should last, ideally, we thought people would say for a week, but no, it's 2 or 3 days only. So, little time, not too much, because if in June or July, the number of residents are away as well. So 2 or 3 days seems to be ideal. The motivations for going to a festival, why people travel to go to a festival, well, be for the ambiance, for the feeling. They want to discover activities. They want to have pleasure, of course. They just want to have fun. So with food and music and with friends, the different themes and activities that were mentioned, well, gastronomy, local products. So this is generalized more and more. People, when they go to festivals, they want to eat and they don't want to eat fries and hot dogs. They want to eat other things. Arts and culture, it's fascinating to see that 56% of respondents are interested by arts and culture. We said arts and culture very broadly speaking, and of course family activities, because we know that we're in a city where family is very present. We asked, it wasn't our initial intention, but we took the opportunity to ask people what Acadie means to them. What does Dieppe mean for them? And it's interesting to see what came out. A number of dimensions came out, a number of things, but what came out first was that it's a Dieppe, Acadie in Dieppe, Acadia in Dieppe is a community of persons who share common values. The second point, and we can come back to it, is a community of persons who share a culture and a language. Third point, a community of persons who live on a territory with organizations represent the Acadian identity, schools, a society that defends Acadian values, Acadian institutions. And the last one is a community of persons that share common origins, and that was only 9%, and that reassured me. That reassures me because I'm considered as an Acadian, even though I'm not originally from Acadia. But it's interesting. It was and very encouraging for the integration of newcomers and Anglophones who aren't necessarily of Acadian origin. So I wanted to say that it's not a value judgment here, but it's really interesting to see that what's more important in the share of what Acadia is in Dieppe and the defense of what Acadia is in Dieppe is more of the values, and the values that were identified. We talked of resilience, of mutual assistance, mutual help, and innovation. So that's what came out. We did a study to see what came out of the universities, how universities defended the Acadian identity, and language was not necessarily amongst the values. So now the identity of the festival. Why do we want to organize a festival? That was the manifest of the festival. Before we start creating a festival, it's important that it be clear in everybody's mind what the objective is. Why are we even making the effort to organize a festival? And what came out through these different consultation is that we need to create a festival that looks after the individual so that they look after their community. So overall, globally, people see a festival as a means to look after, to care for the well-being of the residents, and residents whose well-being is being taken care of are residents who have a better community. So amongst the objectives of the festival, it's this community objective. And we identified different objectives, though, to identify the strengths of Dieppe. That was one of the objectives of the tourism strategy. We have to focus on the identity and the strength of Dieppe. It could not be a rib fest, for example. Even if people like to eat ribs in Dieppe, it's not as significant. It doesn't align with the identity of Dieppe. So it has to really align with the identity and the strength of Dieppe. Another objective was to contribute to the prosperity of the residents and the respect of the territory and the dynamic nature of the downtown area. So that's where people were asking, where should it be held? What format should it have? Well, the prosperity of residents means that as much as possible, it has to be local businesses, very small businesses have to be involved in the development of the festival. The involvement of volunteers, of course, comes up in this idea of prosperity. The respect of the territory is a sustainable development, but also the well-being of the residents. So a rave at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday is not what we're thinking of here. And the dynamic nature of downtown means it's the downtown. So a professional and accessible programming. It has to be diversified. It has to be dynamic. It has to be able to attract tourism. It has to be of excellent quality in its programming and its management and in the infrastructure. The vision of the festival, it's a festival that is inspiring for the residents, but also for people from outside. It has to people who can find themselves or discover themselves in this festive environment. So what came out of the consultation is this came out is that there's really wow festival where we'll find ourselves or discover ourselves for a great time together. And we thought that this was very revealing because it was said in Acadian parlance from the people who participated. And to wrap up then, as Jenny mentioned, we're still finalizing then what a festival could look like, but what seems to come out of this is the ideal time would be the third week of June in order to place it competitively with other events, and also based on the interests of residents. It should be 3 days long. It has to be family oriented, and of course it has to be a generalist enough that it's not just for workers or just for academics on a very, very specific theme. It has to be a family. It has to be geared to families. It has to use the special buildings, the buildings of the downtown area, and it should be geared to francophonie with an S here, all of the Acadian francophonie, but all of the different francophonie from the newcomers from southwest New Brunswick, from the north of the province, which is not the same francophonie of the south of the province. And that's it. Do you have any questions or comments? Next steps will be to finalize the strategic plan and to validate all of this with the municipal team. I see one light on here. Councillor Jeannin, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. It's very exciting to talk about tourism here in Dieppe. And I'm sure that the information that you just gave us will help staff with other initiatives in the city. Just a quick question. You identified the third week of June as the ideal time for a festival, but you're hoping to get clients from the whole province, from the whole country, generalist, or how do you put the two together, knowing that families have children who are still in school and school finishes later in June? Yeah, well, that's the next question. Yeah, if we're hoping to get the Québécois, that they would be on holidays because they finish school on June 24th, usually that last week. So it was, yeah, the idea was to aim for the end of the school year before the people go to their trailer, to their campground for holidays, or just one last event in Dieppe before they go away for summer holidays. And so this could correspond to for the clients in Quebec, yes, Quebec and Ontario. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. No? Yes or no? Go. Is that it? No more questions? Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very clear. It was very well presented. And I'm really eager to see how all of our colleagues are going to react. Well, thank you, and thank you to all those who participated in the consultations. Thank you. And our last item, an update from the commissions and external committees. And I'd just like to point out that some people still need to tell me that they want to stay where they are. Leave me alone. I want to stay. So I would understand if you say that.
Toi, tu as eu des réponses? OK, merci. Alors, s'il n'y a rien d'autre...
So if there's nothing else, committees, external committees.
OK. Madame Godbout.
Councillor Godbout. I just would like to share this just before we changed Prime Minister. Our outgoing Prime Minister made a last announcement on March 10th in which he introduced a white paper on the new vision for the police in Canada and the modernization of the RCMP. It doesn't necessarily impact us today, but if you remember, we have agreements for police services with the RCMP that will be in effect until 2032. So we look at our strategic plan for 2025-2029, it's not in there, but if we think of the next strategic plan, it will be in there. And if we look at the ideas, the potential issues that might arise and what will be available as police services, if the availability of police services changes, then it's something that we'll have to take into consideration. So for our young employees who will still be here in 2032, and for young councillors around the table who might still be here in 2032, it might become an issue. It might become something that you want to be aware of, just to know it exists and to keep it in the back of your mind over the next few years. So I just wanted to point this out, something that will be on the table in the future years. And I would say, yes, it's unavoidable and unavoidable that it comes back up. Thank you. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. The two committees, Expansion Dieppe and the Arts and Culture Center. Expansion Dieppe, as like most people here, we talked about it a lot. It's the banquet coming up in June. And if you allow me to share this, Marie-Claude, you said so earlier, we've also done our strategic plan. We're working on the action plan now in order to implement all of these actions. Now, for the arts and center culture, I'd just like to share with you that the cultural cafe will be opening soon. Ziriab is going to be the name of it. It's going to be where the old bookstore was. So it's going to be opening soon. And we're told it's going to be a lot more than just coffee. It's going to be a culture, a bit of culture. You can go have your cafe there. It's going to be a really nice location. You can go read something or even go visit the Arts and Culture Center and the exhibitions. It's going to open shortly and it will be announced on social media. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I want to talk about Magma. Following the discussions that Magma held with government, because of the reduction in quotas imposed by the federal government, grants could also be reduced. This week, I received a message that contained good news. I don't have any details yet, but I think we were able to convince them that we already had a surplus of clients that we weren't able to serve. So I think they decided, I don't know if they're going to maintain the funding at the same level, but that's good news. Anyhow, that's all for me. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. Thank you. I have the committee of the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, and next week, as a matter of fact, there are going to be discussions on upcoming projects and the new structure. I can't go myself next weekend, but for those who are going to be there, there's going to be some good discussions. And now that's for the meetings part. That's the small region that includes councillors. Now, the union itself, in May, there's going to be a big general meeting to discuss the big issues that will arise after the provincial budget presentation, and also some new structures that will be developed, that will be discussed. So there will be internal discussions first. I'm also on another committee. Did I go too quickly? No, I went too quickly. The other committee I sit on is the Airport Noise Committee. We have perhaps 2 or 3 meetings a year. If there are any complaints, of course, we discuss them and management explain what's going on. Most of the comments that have come out so far deal with the airplanes that make noise when they fly over the houses, especially this summer when windows are open. Now, the airport tries to have people try to make people understand that the airport doesn't decide where the airplanes are going to fly. It's NAVCAN that NAVCAN tells the pilots, especially the students, piloting students, where to where to fly. Now, the big planes, we don't have that many big planes. There's one early in the morning, one late at night. There aren't too many comments in terms of the big planes. It's the small planes that fly too low over our regions. But this is something that is discussed, and it's interesting because NAV can explains to us why, and they have all sorts of statistics and all sorts of information that is timed based on the temperature, height, it changes according to the temperature and so on. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Genet.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Moi, c'est le Théâtre Capitole, le CAFI et
It's the Capitol Theatre, CAFI,
Governance
Governance, and Kodiak Transpo. Capitol Theatre, I work with the director. We have a meeting very soon to establish a plan to share points and optimize our communication with you. Secondly, the play, The Addams Family, a production of the Capitol Theatre, was extremely successful. People who didn't have any previous habit of going to the Capitol Theatre were attracted, were waiting to hear the figures that are in the financial analysis going to be presented to the board of directors. And in programming, you can want to check. There are all kinds of shows to attend. The annual report 2023-2024 is on their website page. It's dated July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. I want to attract your attention to a couple of pages. Page 5, talking about improvements to installations in 2023, new seats that were changed out. Page 6, the financial summary. On page 7, the upcoming programming. There were 268 days of theater use with a total of 168 shows, and 76 of which were Capitol Theatre presentations and 92 were rental events. Let's not forget that there's an art gallery at the Capitol Theatre in the entryway, which has exhibits from many artists and which change on a rotating basis. Last year, the Little Mermaid was the presentation. So 11 public shows, one school show, one show for non-profit organizations, for a total of 8,521 seats or people in seats, without forgetting on page 10, we are given all the gifts that were made by way of complimentary tickets given to nonprofit organizations, 365 tickets only for that alone, and 500 member associations attended the preview of our musical comedy. So that's the annual report. It's many pages long, without forgetting the Academy of the Theatre, which provides an opportunity to students to participate in theatre classes. For CAFI, the same thing. I had a discussion with the director who confirmed at the last meeting that she would be adding to her director's report and identify the things that we could share with the public. So for the next meeting, I'll highlight those items for you. And for the Governance Committee, well, the first meeting since November will be held tomorrow. So I'll do a follow-up and probably news to share with you after that. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Le Boutillier. Nothing to report, Your Worship. Thank you. Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm certainly not going to repeat. I'm on the Dieppe Expansion Committee as well. The big dinner's happening soon. Strategic planning is underway. I'm also a member of the Finance Committee for Expansion Dieppe, and all kinds of things are happening there too. Lots of money and changes are going to be happening very shortly. Another thing, I'm a member of the Santa Claus Parade. It's hard to talk about that right now, but I learned that next year, or in 2025, there's a Plan B. For the first time since the Christmas parade started, it was canceled because of a storm. In the pandemic, there was no parade. That happened again. And so this year, we got cut out at the last minute and we put something ahead. And so there's going to be a Plan B this year. So that's my report. Thank you. I have nothing to add. I think we've pretty much covered a lot of the issues. I'll ask the CEO if there's anything last minute or at the end of the meeting to add. So good evening to all of you then.